This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. So, in the last session, we discussed about the different data types and we identified the different operators example here. So, today we will discuss about the one of the important concept here, control statements. So, before going to discuss about the control statement here, so on Friday, like we have so diagram we implemented here. So, what exactly the diagram will contain here, and how we can come up with the AND operator as well as OR operator here. Okay, so let me write the same diagram one more time here. If you see, so this is the diagram we created on the last session. Now, okay, so this is the for A we created like this, and this is for B, and this is for ARB, and this is for A and B, and not A, and finally not B. Okay, so what I will do, I will try to define the here, and here not A and not B. So what are the values we provided earlier? So false, if the A value false and B value also false. And now what I will do? The ARB will become false and the A and B will become also be false, not A, true and not B. This also will become true. And what about this? Second one I'm making as a 2 and so B I'm making as a false. This will become true and this will become false. And what about this? So not condition will work on the opposite manner. But is true, it will return false. Okay, and here false I'm defining true, and here this will become true and this will become false. And this is the last one. This is true and this is also will become true and this is will become true and this is also true and these two will become false. Get in mind. Now observe carefully what exactly we are doing here. So this is we need to understand very carefully. So if you observe, if the A value I'm giving as a false and if the B value also I'm giving as a false, now what happening internally? The ARB condition will it is returning false and the A and B condition also will return. So basically that what we discussed in the last session and either so A become true or B become true. So either if it is A true or this particular B true. So what happens internally? This OR condition, this is we'll call it as a OR condition. The entire OR condition will become true. Otherwise, if this particular A false and if the particular B false, If the A condition false and B condition false, this R condition will become false here. Getting the point? So basically, what we'll expect here, either if the A is true or if the B is true, any condition is true, the entire expression will become true. Entire expression will become true. So when we are making the two statements, like the two expressions as a false, the entire expression will become false. And either if you provide the A expression as a true, or if you provide this particular B expression also true, so this entire expression will become true. Getting the point? So that we need to understand regarding this. What about this particular and here? So this AND operator, if you see, this is we are returning false, this is we are returning false. The AND is returning false, but only this case. So this true and this true. So A true and B true. The A and B. So in this condition, this is returning true. Only this condition will return true, and remaining conditions will returning false. So now you can see, observe, these remaining conditions are returning false. So why the remaining conditions are returning false? So that we need to understand carefully. Basically, the AND condition, what is doing here? So it should match both the expressions. It should match it should return the A expression true and B expression true. Getting the point? So this is very important here. So here A expression should return true and B expression should return true. In that case only the A and B expression will become true. In that case only the A and B expression will become true. Getting the point? So this is we need to understand very carefully. And what about this? So ARB you can see. So if the A will become false and B will, so A is returning false and B is also returning false. That in this particular case only, in this particular case only, the ARB returning false. But remaining three cases, now we can observe the R condition returning true. And the A and B remaining three cases is returning false. Only one case it is returning true. This is very important. We need to understand here. Getting the point. This is very important. We need to understand here. So now observe carefully what we are doing here. So if the both the conditions are returns false, the R condition will returning false, but either A are returning true or B are returning true. So you can see the statement, first statement, second statement is returning A condition true, and the third statement now you can see the B condition returns true. And the fourth statement now observe carefully, both the expressions are returning true. Either like A expressions are returning true and B expressions also returning true. So in this case also the ARB condition returning true. Getting the point? So this is very important because in the real time scenarios, most of the time we are going to use this OR operator as well as AND operator here. What we need to understand, AND operator only one case will returns true and remaining three case it will return false. So what is exactly the one case here? The one case here, A and B expression need to be satisfied here. Satisfied is nothing but A and B, it needs to return true. So this is we need to understand here. Okay, so let's have a simple example how it is going to work here. So I'm keeping as it is this particular expressions here. Now I'm moving into example. So let me go to the project explorer. So where we define the package, so we are coming under the core Java 7. I'm going to write the class here. This is we are trying to write as a Boolean logic. Now observe what I'm doing here. Boolean A is equals to who I'm defining. Okay. Boolean B is equals to false I'm defining. Boolean C is equals to so ARB I'm defining. Okay. This is an R operator. And Boolean D is equals to What is the operator I'm defining? A and B. A and B. Okay, now what we can understand here? So here we need to understand here how this expression will return true. So only how many print statements we need to print? Only two print statements are is enough. The those two called the C Boolean value as well as D Boolean value we need to print because A and B we are initializing the value. The C and D only we are going to come up with whatever the expression we discussed, like either this particular or operator as well as the and operator. So based on this particular and or operator, what is the value it will return? The value we are trying to store into this particular C and D variable here. Okay, so now what I will do, simply I will write as a C value and D value. So C and D value. If I'm going to run this example, observe carefully. Now you can see. So why we are getting the C value as a true and why we are getting this particular D value as a false here. Okay. Now you can see the C value we are getting as a true and D value we are getting as a false. So why we are getting this particular D value false? So what is the operator we are using? AND operator. So this particular AND operator will return true when this particular A and B, whatever the variable we are defining, this should match here. But here only one expression is matching, that is called A, and we need to match this particular B as well. So if you modify this A and B, now if I'm going to run this, now we'll see the D value. Now observe carefully, the D value we are getting as a true. The D value we are getting as a true. Now carefully observe this expression here. Whatever the table we discuss here, we need to understand the table. So this last statement is matching or not? Whatever the last statement we defined here, this particular last statement is matching here. So what we need to understand here, basically is like for AND operator, A need to satisfy the expression, and this particular B also need to satisfy this particular expression, then only this particular A and B will become true. Getting the point? This particular A and B will become true. And what about this particular R operator? Basically, R operator, what happens here? Either first it will check the highest options it will give to this particular A expression, because this is the first expression we are writing here. If this particular A expression is satisfied with the written true value, it will not look up this particular B. It will not look up this particular B. For basically, what we need to understand here, this is an A and this is an a B. Only if this particular A is returning false. Only if the A is returning false. So in that case only it will move on to this particular B expression. So if the A expression is returning true, it will not go to this particular B here. It will not check this particular B. If A is satisfied, this R operator will return the expression returns true. Getting the point? So in our case also it's same, but if the A value we provided as a true and it is not going to look up the B, directly it will return this particular true. For it will applicable only R operator. What about this particular line? It will look up the two statements here, like it will look up this A as well as it will look up this particular B also. It will look up the B also. So this is, we need to understand the R operator as well as AND operator here. Okay. Now this is an example we are having here. So this is all about the AND operator as well as OR operator. And now observe, so one more I'm trying to add here, Boolean E is equals to, now what I'm doing here, so I'm trying to come up with two expressions here. So observe carefully, here I'm making false here, and here not a condition I'm adding, and here I'm come up with the AND operator and B. So this is the one expression, and another one. Now what I'm doing here, so here I'm trying to use the or operator here, and after this, so what I'm trying to write, so one more block of expression I'm writing. So you can see, so the parenthesis I'm defining, the whenever we are defining this particular parenthesis, we already identify. So it's going to take highest priority here. And now observe, here I'm defining A and not B. In the point. So you can observe carefully, here we are coming with a not condition. And here also we are coming with a not condition. So for A and for B, we are using the not. So what exactly it will do? You can see this is the not A and this is for not B. What exactly it is doing it? If the A value false and the not condition will returning true. And if the same B value also false, the not condition is returning true. Getting the point. Now you can see if the A and B are returning true and these are returning falses. So what you understand here, these two statements are going to work in the opposite manner. If the A value false, the not condition is returning true. And if the A value true, the not condition returning false here. Getting the point. So this is we need to understand. So okay, now what we need to understand here. If you see what is the A value we are having, true. And what happens here? So it's returns false here. It will return false. So if you observe the first expression here, this is the false and we are making. And what about this particular B? What is the B value we are having? False here. What is the B value we are having? False. And what is the operator we are using here? R operator. But internally, what is the operator we are using? So internally, what is the operator we are using? And. Now if we come up with this expression, A false and B false. If the A false and B false, now we can see A false and B false, the first statement. Now this A and B, what is returning? A and B returning as a false here. So this also returning false. So now we understand here. This entire expression will become false. This entire expression will become false. Okay, now we are using the R. And now what we need to understand here. And what about this particular A? What is the A value we are having here? Now you can see that is called true. And what about this particular B? B initially it is a false. But what is the operator we are using? Not. Not what happens here? It will work on the opposite manner. It will work on the opposite manner. So observe carefully how we are working. This is important here. Okay, so now you can see this entire expression is returning false and this entire expression returning true. In between, what is the operator we are using? Not operator we are using. Sorry, R operator we are using here. Okay, so again we need to move on to the diagram here. So what exactly the diagram will do? Okay, so now you can think here. This is the A value and this is the B value. This is the B value. So now A value false and B value true. So go to this particular diagram here. So A value false and B value true. So here the third statement here. So this is the third statement is matching here. A value returning false and B value returning true. And what about this particular R condition is returning true. Getting the point? It is returning true. So this is we need to understand very carefully here. So now what we understand here, the whole expression, whatever the whole expression we defined here, this particular E. So what is the value we are going to return? That will return true. That will return. So don't confuse here. This entire expression will become true. Okay. So how we are returning this particular expression true? Basically, based on the whatever the table we defined here, the table based on this particular table, we are getting this particular value as a true. Now observe the E value we are getting as a true. Okay. So any questions regarding this particular booleans? Whatever the table we define here, like it's like a AND operator we are using as well as OR operator we are using. Based on this particular AND OR operators here, we are trying to come up with a simple example here. So anyone having any questions here? Okay. So if we don't have anything, we'll move on to the one of the important operator called ternary operator. So ternary operator, basically we come up with a question mark here. Ternary operator will come up with a question mark, and here we'll come up with the expression 1. Getting the point? So this is the expression 1, and after this particular expression 1, now what we will do? So here we are going to write the question mark here, and after question mark we'll come up with the expression 2. Okay, and after expression 2, now what I'm doing here, I'm adding the colon here. Getting the point? I'm adding the colon. After the colon, I come up with the expression 3. I come up with the expression 3. So this is very important, we need to understand here. This is very important, we need to understand here. So observe carefully. Now what I'm doing here, I come up with the expression 1 question mark, expression 2 colon, as well as expression 3. Expression 1 question mark, expression 2 and colon, expression 3. So how exactly this ternary operator is going to work? For example, whatever the expression 1 we defined here, if this particular expression 1 will return true, if this expression 1 will return true, and what happens internally, whatever the expression 2 we are defining, the expression 2 is going to execute. So for example, the same expression is returning false. The same expression is returning false. Now what happens internally? So it will go to this particular expression 3. Now what you understand here? Based on this particular expression return type, based on this particular expression, if it is returned true, the expression 2 is going to execute, and if it is returning false, the expression 3 is going to execute here. The expression 3 is going to execute here. So this is, we need to understand very carefully here. This is, we need to understand very carefully here. Okay, so the entire ternary operator is going to work based on this particular expression 1. Based on the expression 1, if it is returned true, it will move on to the expression 2, like is nothing but after the question mark. After the question mark, whatever the expression we are going to write, so it will execute. And if it is returned false, it will move on to the expression 3. Okay, so let's have a simple example how this particular ternary operator is going to work. Okay, so let's see how this particular ternary operator will work. Here only I'm going to write, and I'm coming with the into I comma k. I'm declaring the variable. Now you can see, so I value I'm initializing as a 10. Getting the point? So now observe carefully k value. The k value, how I'm trying to initializing here. Getting the point? If this particular k value, if this particular k value, so less than 0. Getting the point? Observe carefully. The expression 1, what I'm doing here, I'm using less than operator. If this particular I value less than 0, so I'm using the question mark here. And what I will do after question mark here, I'm trying to use this particular minus I. So this is the second expression. And if the second expression is not if the first expression is returns false, now what happens internally? It will move on to the third expression here. So observe carefully how I'm defining. Okay, this is we are calling as a expression 1. Whatever I'm highlighting, this is we call it as a expression 1. So if the expression 1 returns true, now what happens internally? It will move on to the, it will move on to this particular second expression. So what we are returning here? Minus I. And the same way, if this particular expression, the current expression returns false, the current expression returns false here, we are moving into the expression third. Getting the point? Expression 3. So right now, just we are not having much expressions here, just we are trying to come up with the I here, but in the real time, we are going to write more and more code here. inside this particular, so like using this particular ternary operator here, we are going to write much of the code here. So one more example I'm going to write here. So you can see simple example. So this is the person object. Okay, we are having person object, and now I'm making person not equals to null. I'm making person not equals to null, and here I'm using question mark here. So whenever we are using a question mark, we can call it as a ternary operator. And if the person not equals to null, what I will do, person dot get member dot get name in the one. So now observe, this is the second expression. Second expression. So now what I will do, if this particular person is null, if this person is null, now what I'm doing it, so directly I'm going to come up with a member dot get name, member dot get name. Now imagine how we are defining the expression 1 and expression 2 and as well as expression 3. So this is up to this we'll call it as a expression 1. Okay, and this is we'll call it as a expression 2. Getting the point? And this will call it as a expression 3. Okay, now same you can think regarding this particular current example what we are using, because right now we don't have much code, just we are using the variable. So based on this particular I variable, I'm trying to initialize the k value. Getting the point? Based on this particular I variable, I'm trying to initialize. But now you can think the below statement, line number 17, how we can come up with the same ternary operator. If the person not equals to null, and if the person not equals to null, so if it is returns true, if it is returns true, it will move on to this. If it is returned false, it will come up with this particular expression 3. Okay, this is we need to understand very carefully here. Okay, let's have a the simple example on this. Now what we can do, we can print this particular I and k value. So I value will become same, and only we can print here, basically only we can understand the k value, only we can understand this particular k value. Now run this particular example. So what is I value we are getting? 10. And why we are getting the k value also same 10 here? Why we are getting same 10 here? So try to understand this example, and so see basically what we are doing. If the I less than 0, so whatever the I value we are providing, this is not the less than to 0, because it is the high value is a bigger value compared to this particular 0. Getting the point? The expression is returning false. Whenever it is returning false here, it will move on to the third expression. So the third expression, how we are defining after this particular colon. So same thing you can see here, we are defining colon. After the colon, whatever the expression we are defining, that will call it as a third expression here. So it is executing third here. Now observe, if I'm trying to come up with a pre-increment here, so that we can get to know how this particular k value is increasing now. So observe carefully, high value as well as k value is increasing. Getting the point? So this is we need to understand here. So here I come up with a pre-increment operator, so that is modify the existing value. Earlier we come up with the 10 value, now it is modified to this particular 11. Okay. So any questions here regarding this particular ternary operator?
So can we do one time I plus plus also?
Sorry, I
And
did
like
not
post
understand.
can no, I'm telling, can we do post increment also?
At the same time here,
Yes, yes.
now you can see on the same variable how we are going to perform the two operations here. So either we should come up with this particular pre or we can come up with the post here. So we cannot use two at a time here. So it's giving the compilation error here.
No, I'm just telling. We saw the result of pre in, increment. Now can we check again post also?
Yeah, we can check. So there is no problem here, but here now you can see k value 10 and I value 11. Okay, so basically whatever the original value we are having this particular I, it is initializing into this particular k, and later it is updating this particular I value. Okay, so because of it is a post here. So post increment basically first it will initialize the original value to the whatever the variable we are trying to initializing here. After this, the original variable it will affected here. Okay, so still anyone having any questions?
So for this, like you gave the another example. Person is not null, not equal null. For this one, is the
Okay.
first expression is correct?
See, right now we don't have any person. So just we need to imagine if the person is object is available, so this expression it will return true. So once it is written, this will execute. The after the question mark, whatever the expression we are going to write, this will execute here. So otherwise, it will move on to this. So basically, what I'm doing here, I'm checking if the person is not, if the person is available from the person, I'm trying to load the member. Okay. So some cases the person object will not available. So in that case, directly I'm loading the member object here. So this is only this ternary operator expression will do here.
Sir, if first expression is true, then it will go to second expression.
Yes.
Otherwise, it will go to third
Third
expression.
expression. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now we'll move on to the control statement. So basically, we identified the simple example on the if condition here. So along with this particular if condition, so today we can check about the remaining what are all the different conditions we are having. So basically, we have the control statements like iteration, and we can come up with the selection statements and jump statement here. So these are all the different statements we are having here. First, we'll come up with iteration, like we'll come up with the conditional statements here. So that we'll call it as a if condition and else condition. So let's see, basically in the previous example, we have a basic example on the if. So inside this particular if I'm going to write any expression in the mind, so any expression, and if this particular expression returns true, now what happens internally? Now what happens internally? And if this particular expression returning true, so it will move on to the below statements here. So whatever the below statement we are going to write for this particular if, so it will execute. Otherwise, now it will check for the else statement here. So now you can see this is the if condition and body here. Body of the if here, and I'm closing this. Now, so what we can understand here, this is the if condition, and if the condition is not satisfied, so now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to write this particular else here. So this is the else body. This is the else body here. So that we need to understand here. So now observe carefully. So first we are checking this particular if, and whatever the expression we are writing here, if this particular expression returns true, now what happens internally? It will execute the line number 21, whatever the statements we are going to write. So this is basically we'll call it as a if condition body. And if condition is failed, so some cases, if this particular expression returning false, now what happens internally? It will move on to the this particular else statement here. Getting the point? It will move on to the this particular else statement here. So now observe, this is the else body is going to execute. So let's have a simple example how it is going to work with this particular example. Now for this, again, I'm going to comment out this. So here only I'm trying to write the simple example. Now, so instead of writing, because it's little bit bigger example, come up with one more class. So if else. Now you can see the name of the class I'm trying to give as a if else here. And now what I'm doing here, I come up with I'm defining one variable as a month. The month I'm defining like initializing with the 4. Okay, so this is the variable name we are declaring as a month. The data type we are having int here. Okay, now what I'm doing here, so one more variable I'm defining, like one more data type we are using, that is called string. So right now we don't have much code much information about this particular string. So we'll discuss this string related information upcoming classes here. And now you can see, so just I'm declaring one variable that is called season. Okay, so now you can see I'm using if condition. So if this particular month equals to 4, sorry, directly we cannot use a 4. I'm using 12. Or, so R operator I'm using. Now you can see month equals to 1 and month equals to 2. So observe carefully the same variable we are using with the different values here. So here what we need to understand, first we need to understand this is the if condition we are using, but internally we come up with a different expressions here. So we come up with a different expression. So in between, what is the operator we are using? R operator here. Getting the point? So this is, we can think about the A expression, and between we are using R, and this is the B, and again we are using the R, again we are using come up with a different expression. So this is, we can call it as a C. So these are all the three expressions here. These are all the three expressions we are defining, and between, what is the operator we are using? That is called R operator. So we just now we discuss about this particular R operator, how it is going to work. Okay, so if this particular if satisfied, now what happens internally? It will initialize this particular variable. It's called season. So what is the season I'm trying to write? So winter. Any the pen. So this is the season we are going to call. The season will come under the, so like a month 12, 1 and 2. Okay. Now observe carefully. What is the month variable we are defining? And it will check with these three conditions here. So month is equals to 12. So it will not satisfy. Again it will check if the month equals to 1. Again it will not satisfy. So this will check month equals to 2. It will not also satisfy. Now this entire if condition is failing. So once it is failed, now what we can understand here, so we need to understand else else if. Getting the point? So we need to understand the else if condition here. Okay, so basically what exactly this particular else if will do. So first it will give you this particular highest priority, and later it will check with this particular, it will check this particular else if here. Okay, now what exactly we can understand here, and here I'm going to write the same, but only the values I'm going to modify. Now you can see else if I'm defining here, and if this particular month equals to 3. So because 2 already we defined, and again I'm going to come up with the 4, and here I'm going to come up with the 5. Okay, so this is the different condition, and here I'm checking if this particular if condition is will fail. So the second condition is going to check, this is the second one, else if the second one, This is the else if here. Okay, now what I'm doing here, again, I'm come up with the season, and this particular season, now what I'm doing here, something like spring. Okay, so this is the variable initialization, but observe carefully how we are initializing the variable based on some certain condition here. Based on this particular condition, we are initializing the value. So this is if the conditions are satisfied, any of the one condition, because we come up with the or operator, not the and operator here. Getting the point? We are using or operator. Any one of the condition is satisfied, it will enter into the line number null. It will initialize the value. And same way here also. So any one of the condition is satisfied. Now it will go to the line number 11 and it will initialize this particular value. Okay, for example, this condition is also not satisfied. This condition is also not satisfied. Now what we can do? Again, we can come up with one more else if. So this is the third priority. The first priority we are giving to the line number 8 if condition, and the second priority we are giving to the line number 10, that is called else if. Even if the else if condition is not satisfied, we are coming back to the line number 12. So again, month equals to 6. Again, we can use the same variable like month equals to 7 and of R operators, month equals to 8. So this is the one more else if condition. So we can come up with a different season here. So that we are going to call it as a something like summer. Okay. So just for understanding, I'm trying to write here. Okay. Observe carefully. So this is the one more else if here. So same thing here we need to understand. Any of this particular two conditions are failed, it will back to the line number 12 and it will execute here. So one more condition I'm trying to write here, and now observe. So 6, 7, 8 we already given. Now we come up with a 9 and I'm using 10, and finally I'm going to use 11. This is the one more else if condition. So this is, we'll call it as a 2-month. So finally, what we can understand here, if any one of the condition is failed, any one of this particular condition is failed, now what happens internally? We are going to write with one more statement here. This is the last statement. Getting the point? So why I'm writing this particular else? Why I'm writing this particular else? So if you observe carefully, this condition is not satisfied. This condition is also not satisfied, and this particular condition is also not satisfied, and finally this particular condition is also not satisfied. Now what happens internally? It will execute this statement here. So any one of these statements are not executed, so it will take highest priority of this particular else and it will execute this. It will execute this. Okay, so you can write whatever the message you want to write here. This is I'm trying to write as a bogus month. Getting the point? Now, so what we can understand here, whatever the value I'm giving, the value it is not available within this particular condition. So for example, if I'm going to give 14, for example, if I'm going to give 14, so what happens internally? Whenever we are giving this particular 14, this all the conditions are failed. These conditions are failed, directly it will come to this particular else here. Okay, so finally, now we can print this particular season value. Now you can see if I'm going to run this, so we are getting bogus month. Why we are getting the bogus month? Because whatever the condition we are giving 14, this particular 14 is not going to satisfy any one of this particular condition. Okay, now if I'm going to modify 4 here, month I'm giving as a 4. Now observe carefully what happens here. So we are getting spring. We are getting spring. So now what you understand? The second else if is satisfied. Why this particular second else if satisfied? Sorry, the first else if condition is satisfied. Here you can see month equals to 4. Getting the point? Month equals to 4 we define here. Okay, so this is we need to understand. And same thing you can modify. If I'm going to give 11, the month value, if I'm giving 11, now what happens internally? We are getting 2 month. Getting the point? So this is the way the if and else if finally else. These are all the conditional statement we are defining here. This is also very important because in the real time scenarios we are going to use like this. See, basically what we need to understand here, if condition is satisfied, for example, the line number 8 is satisfied, so these the conditions are not going to execute. Okay, so for example, this the condition is satisfied and the remaining statements are not going to execute. Getting the point? And same way, so this condition is not satisfied, only this particular else is not going to execute. But sometimes what happen here, even though even though this particular if is not satisfied, I want to execute one more, or if this particular if is satisfied, I want to come up with a one more statement, I want to check one more statement here, how we can write. So for example, so if you observe carefully, if satisfied this, it will not execute this. Okay, but what we are expecting here, even if it is satisfied this, so we need to check one more statement here. We need to check one more statement. So how we can write? So insert in like if we want to check one more condition, so you can remove this else. Getting the point? You can remove this particular else here. So what happens now? So here, what we need to understand here, either if this particular expression returns true or false, again this section will execute. Getting the point? This is very important. We need to understand here. Observe. So we are checking this, and the line number 8, if condition returning true, even though if it is returning true, again we are going to check this. Okay. So because this condition is different, this condition is different. But if you observe carefully, if this particular condition returns true, this particular blocks are not going to execute because so we are having a relation like this, if else if else if else. Okay, but here we don't have a relation these two. If condition is separate and this particular if condition is also separate, so these are not having any relationship here, but this particular expression we are having relations here. Getting the point? So once this particular if condition is executed, it will not going to execute this. But even though if this particular condition is executed, still it will try to look up this particular line number 10. Getting the point? So this is very important here. Okay, so these are about the particular if and else if conditions. So anyone having any questions here?
Sir, why a compiler give only the name autumn? Why the rest of the names it did not show on the compiler side?
Okay, so now observe. So we'll back to the same example. I want to use the else if. Observe carefully. I am running in the debug mode. Okay, so now you can see. So line number 8 is stopped here. And what is the value we are having? So right side variable section you can see 11. Okay, so what is the condition is going to satisfy? The line number 8 will it is satisfied? The line number 8 condition will return true or false? Can you please check and let me know? Okay, so if we observe month, we are checking month equals to 12, but here what is the value we are having? 11. So 11 equals to 12. Will it satisfy? Right. So this will not satisfy because left side we are having 11, right side we are having 12. So come to the second one. And here what we are doing here, 11 equals to 1. This will not also satisfy. And 11 equals to 2. So these three expressions are returning false. Getting the point? So once these three expressions return false, now what happens here? So it will check for the line number 10. Now if you observe carefully, the line number 10 is executing, like checking or not, not executing. So observe carefully, it is not moving into the line number, it is coming out of the line number 9 and it is checking line number 10. Okay, so now again we need to check here. So what is the month we are having? So here we are having 11 equals to 3, and the same way 11 equals to 4, and 11 equals to 5. So any one of the expression will satisfy here? No, because we are having 3, 4, 5. So here we are checking with 11 here. So 11 cannot equals to this particular 3, 4, 5. Now what happens here? Again, the line number 10 also, it will not going to execute here because the entire line number 10 is returning false. So now we identified the line number 8 also is returning false, and the line number 10 also it is returning false. Now what we can do? We need to move on to the next line. Now you can see, now I'm checking line number 12. So the line number 12, what happening here? Again, we can check here. So 11 equals to 6, and the same 11 equals to 7, because double equal to operator we already identified. So just it will check with the values here, left side values with the right side values. And now you can see 11 equals to this particular 8 here. Okay.
Hmm.
So these are all the, again, three values are not going to satisfy with this particular 11.
Hmm.
So if it is not satisfied, again, this particular 12 statements also will not satisfy. Now back to here. So we are checking the line number 14. But 14, we are having one value. So this particular highlighted one, it will satisfy because right side variable and left side variable both are matching here. So once it is matching, so now you can see the 15, the line number 15 is executing. Observe carefully. Line number 15 executing. So once the line number 15 is executing, so directly it will not check this. It will not check this line numbers 16 and 17. Directly it will move on to the line number 18. So observe carefully. Whenever I'm trying to move on to the next line, so it's coming to the line number 18, not the line number 17 or 16. Getting the point? Directly it is coming to the line number 18. Why it is coming? Because this particular condition is satisfied. So once it is satisfied, it will not check this particular line number. It will not check with this particular else section. Okay, so this is the way we need to check here. So finally, what is the value we are getting? So to month, this is the 15, the values is initialized here. So for example, if I'm going to give, if I'm going to give this particular one, so now observe one more time, I'm running the same example. Observe, so it is checking. Now what happens here? This particular condition is satisfied. The first statement only it is satisfying. Once it is satisfied, these line numbers are not going to execute. This is very important. We need to understand. This particular line numbers are not going to execute. Directly, it will come back to the line number 18. It will come back to the line number 18. Observe carefully. So line number 9, the values are initializing. Now you can see. Now you can see. So from here, from the line number 9, it is coming to the line number 18. These are all the statements are not executing here. Getting the point? These are all the statements are not executing here because once this particular condition is satisfying, it's not going to check the remaining statements here. It's not going to check the remaining statements. So for example, I'm removing this particular if else condition. So again, now you can check. Now you can check this particular same. Now observe what happening internally. So what we can check here. So here you can see the month value we are giving as a 1. This condition is satisfied here. So we'll move on to the line number 9. So once the line number 9 is satisfied, now it will not come back to the line number 18. So it will try to check the line number 10 here. It will try to check the line number 10. So now observe carefully. So carefully see what happening. Now you can see. So why again it is stopping line number 10 here? Getting the point. So earlier it is not stopped line number 10. Directly it is come back to the line number 18. But now if you see, it is stopping line number 10 here. Why it is stopping line number 10 here? Getting the point? Because so this condition is different and this particular condition is different. So there is no communication between these two. Getting the point? There is no communication between these two. But here we are having communication. So we are having a relation between if and else if here. But here for these two we don't have any relation here because this condition is separately we are checking, and this particular condition we are checking with along with this particular blocks here. Else if and else here. What about the first one? So only we are checking the if here. There is no other conditions here. So this is we need to understand here. Okay, because of this here, so it is stopping line number 10. So even though it is not satisfying here, now observe each and every else if along with else if, and it is checking with else here. So now observe, so else if is checking, again one more else if is checking, and finally this particular else is checking, and it is modifying the value. So if you see, so what is the season we are having right now? Right now basically it is initialized with winter. Now it is modifying with bogus month. So now you can see it is coming with this particular value here. So this is very important, we need to understand here. So whenever we are trying to write if with the else if, and if you are trying to come up with the one only if, so we have a different relations we are having here. Okay, basically if we want to check one more condition, even the first condition will fail or pass here. Getting the point? If the first condition returns true or false here, so if we want to check one more condition, so what is the best way here? We cannot use the else if here. We should come up with the one more if here. So and then only we can check with the one more condition here. Okay, this is very important. We need to understand this particular if and else if here. So any questions still?
No, sir, thank you.
Sir, I have one question. Like, if we are checking the condition through else if, so why we are using another if?
Which line you are talking about? We are not using
Like,
any another if here.
no. Like here we are using two if conditions, line number 8 or line number 10. But
Okay.
we are checking our condition through else if on line number 12, line number 14, line number 16. So why why we are using two if conditions? Can
See,
we use
base.
else if?
Yeah, I think you did not understand. So basically, what happens here? So if the line number 10 is not satisfying here, so this particular block is not going to execute here. Okay, at a time, it will check only one condition. Any block is returns true, it will not like it will ignore the below statements here. So for example, line number 10 is satisfied. Now you can see the month we are giving as a 4. Now what happens? This sections is not going to check here. Getting the point? So sometimes what happens here, so we are going to use one condition, even we are not going to depends on this particular condition. Again we need to check with the one more condition. Okay, so this condition is different and this particular condition is also different here. So for example, here we are checking with the month here. Okay, and here we may come up with the days here. For
Mhm.
this particular month and days, if you are going to use, so for example here I'm using if, and if you come up with a else if here. So if you come up with this particular else if here, what
Mhm.
happens here? Because this condition is different, this condition is different. So if, for example, this particular condition is satisfied, we are ignoring this. The days condition we are not going to check here because of this particular else if here. Else if is a nested condition. Getting the point. So the highest priority we are going to check with the if, and next priority we are going to give to this particular else if, and you can write how many else if you want to write. You can come up with thousands of else ifs. Okay, so there is no limitation this, and finally we should come up with the else here. So this is the syntax we are going to use, and here whenever we are using this particular if, it will ignore this else if as well as this particular else. and if the else is sorry if the this particular if condition returns false, okay, it will give the priority to execute this particular else if here. But only the condition will false, then only it is giving the priority to execute this particular else if. But now what I'm doing here, this condition I'm making as a days, sorry, months here. If I'm going to check this particular else if as a days here, now what happens here? So month is satisfied. If the month is satisfied, we are not going to check with the days here because it is a nested conditions here. So for this, what we are doing here, you can imagine this is the month condition. Now the line number 10, you can imagine this is the days. Okay, so then line number, so here you can imagine simple one. This we are going to come up with a month, and this we are checking with the days here. Just imagine here. Now what happens here, even we are not checking, like we are not depending on a month. So whatever the condition we're making, whether the month is satisfied or not, we are not going to check here, but only we are checking here days here. So days again, we are checking with the first if the days is not satisfied with the first, so we are giving the option to execute line number 13, something like this here. Okay, but this is important whenever we are trying to check multiple conditions. So when we are trying to check multiple conditions, so this if else if is not going to work, we may come up with the multiple if conditionals only. This is I'm trying to explain here. Okay, it's clear? Still you are having any doubt?
No, sir, I'm clear. So can you please show one multiple condition example?
Okay, so observe carefully what we did earlier. Now imagine here we are having 4, so or we may come up with the 1. So observe carefully the same example I'm going to run again in the debug mode. So now you can see the line number 8. Now, so now can you please let me know the line number 8 is going to satisfy or not?
It's satisfied.
So once it is satisfied, what happens here? It will
It
ignore
will go
this.
on line. Yeah, it will ignore the all line and it will go on line number 18.
Okay, now, so if you observe, now what I'm doing here, I'm come up with this is the one condition, and internally I'm checking one more condition. So for example, here only I will define the days. So here I'm giving days 20.
Okay.
So if I'm trying to check this particular days 3, so days 4 and this days I'm checking with the 20. Okay, now what happens internally? So we'll restart this. Even
Now,
though the else if is going to satisfy our days condition, but now what happens here? It will not check here because of this particular outer condition. This is the highest priority condition. The highest priority condition is satisfied. It will ignore all the below statement, directly come back to the line number 19. Now you can see, so winter variable is initializing, coming back to the line number 19. But this is not the expected way. So what we can do, you can remove this. Now observe carefully. So at this time, what we are doing here? So here we are having different two conditions. First month we are checking here. Month we are not depending on the days here. So month is satisfied. Again we are checking the days. Now you can see it is stopping line number 11 here. Earlier it is not stopped the line number 11. Directly come back to the line number 19 here. But
mm,
now because if you see there is no relation between these two conditions.
mm,
But here we are having the relation. So this we are having the relation. If else if we are having the relation, but now these two conditions we don't have. This is important here. Okay, so whenever we are trying to check multiple conditions, we cannot use this. We can come up with the if conditions. Here we are checking the different days, and here we are checking the month. But if you want to check the days, if you want to check the days here, now we can come up with this particular else. How we define the earlier month related information here. Okay, now you can see days is satisfying here. Now it is moving on to the line number 12. And now, so once the line number 12 is executing, so directly it will go to the line number 19 here. Okay, so this is all about the different conditions here.
Got it, sir.
Okay, so any
Yeah.
other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so tomorrow we'll continue on the switch cases here. So because most of the people are not yet joined the session, so we cannot discuss more information in the today's session. We'll continue tomorrow. We'll try to discuss about the switch cases, and after the switch, we'll move on to the nested if conditions. So how we come up with the nested for loops here. Same way we are going to discuss about the nested if conditions here, and later we'll move on to the while loop and do while loop. Same way we'll come up with a different example here. Okay, so if we don't have anything, so we'll continue tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.